welcome again to Data Natives 2018. So for me, it's actually pretty cool to be here because I already spoke at a Data Natives a few years ago, 2015, I think, and it was actually the first Data Natives that was here in Germany. And back then, a lot of people asked me, oh, can you please speak, about these sort of new AI methods like deep learning? Because, back in those years, it was rather new, and not a lot of people had worked with it yet and had used it and wanted to know what it was actually all about. And we've just heard also in the previous talks that it's pretty amazing what has happened during the last, just 3 or 4 years. It's like right now, AI seems it's everywhere. I mean, a lot of industries are utilizing it. We have a lot of AI products in our homes, and now actually even the German government has caught on and, wants to put a lot of money and effort into AI. So to, sort of get you in the mood, but I guess we've just also heard a very positive examples from IBM. I just wanted to kind of run through some examples with you of what AI has done during the past years. I think this is one of the examples that we actually haven't had today, which was in the beginning of 2016, where Google's AlphaGo actually beat a master at the game Go. And I think that was one of the things where actually AI got more into people's attentions, and they started thinking, oh wow, if that method is already that far, and if we can already teach a machine to be a master at something a lot better than a human person, there's a lot of potential. So of course, whenever people are utilizing things more and experimenting more, there's always also experiments that tend to go rather wrong. So this is an example that also made it to the press from 2018, where the South Wales police wanted to use video recognition, video identification, to actually, scan people at a Champions League game because they wanted to identify potential criminals. And they did. As you can see here, they found a lot of potential criminals, a few thousand, actually. So, of course, about 92% of those were wrong. Those people weren't actually criminals. And because of that really high error rate of 92%, it got them a lot of kind of bad publicity about this project. So I think what we can see here altogether is that there's on the one hand this big hype, and there's a lot of really good examples of what AI can do. But there's also other projects where it really sort of failed, and things went really wrong. And I sense this, sort of questioning in people, like, what is it? Do I actually need to be some Google, some Microsoft? Do I need, millions or billions of funding to actually make use of AI and build successful products and projects? Or can I also just, do that for my business, actually? So what I wanted to share with you today are a few things that, from my experience, are very important, when you think about doing AI projects in your business and actually utilize it. They're not so much actually about how much funding you have, they're more about how you approach the project. So let me start with the first point, culture and team. First message is, business is part of the team, also actually management. So if you think about doing any sort of, building an AI application or using AI in your business, really always have the business on board and have them honestly on board. So if you sense any hesitation because they don't really know what it's all about, don't push it, don't force it, and don't oversell it. So, of course, you can, go to them and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to build you this really cool machine, and it's going to automate everything, and it's so smart, and, you're going to save a lot of money. Because actually, we don't need you anymore then, because the machine is going to do everything. That's one way to approach it. Maybe a slightly different way to approach it would be to go to them and to ask, look, guys, do you have anything, in your way of working and in your business, some tasks that are really boring? and really, sort of repetitive and something that you have to do all the time, but it's really not sort of the real expert stuff that you want to be doing, but you just have to be doing, and it's sort of a real hassle. Now, wouldn't that be cool if I can build you a machine, some cute little robot that actually does exactly that for you? Then, you might have them thinking, and they might think, oh yeah, now that would actually be pretty cool. So it's a completely different way of approaching a thing and actually of getting business and then also management on board. The second thing is something about your whole sort of organization. So AI these days is not plug and play yet. Sometimes, with big solutions on the market, we might think that, but it's just still every AI project is very individual, and you really things are going to go wrong with some areas. So you really need to count on that some mistakes are going to happen, and if you're not in that sort of company or business that has this mindset where we say, okay, it's okay, we'll try things, we'll customize these things and we'll fail, but it's okay, we'll still do it together. If you're not that way, then maybe it's a better idea to wait a few years, let everybody else do it, let everybody else, make the mistakes, and wait until there's actually a lot more standardized plug-and-play solutions out there. So the last thing, actually, for this topic is you need an interdisciplinary mindset. There's sort of a big hype about also data scientists, and with AI, a lot of people seem to think that all you need is data scientists. But to be honest, for a running AI application and business that brings value, you need so much more than just data scientists. I mean, you need data engineers to build the pipelines. You need DevOps engineers to turn it into actually a really running productively system, to Dockerize things, to make it scalable on an infrastructure, all those sort of things. You need a product owner who understands the capabilities of AI, but can also understand the needs of the business and translate in between. So there's a lot of disciplines that actually come together, and it's not only about data science. So, you can try to get this one data scientist or a few data scientists that are, really good and are like the superhero expert. You can do that and, sort of just wait for them and wait for them and wait for them. Or you just make people work together and get all the different disciplines on board in a team. Okay, next thing is about the use case. So let's say now you got your team together, your business is all ready and set up, and now you're thinking, okay, what am I actually doing? And this is a very important point. Like, really think about what you actually want to achieve with this. And again, the business needs to be on board. So define that together with the business. And here, all the data scientists of you out there, you are, in this case here, you really need it because you need to explain to the business what AI really is and what the methods can do and what they cannot do. Sometimes people who don't really have a lot of experience with it, they really think that, all these systems are so intelligent and they can do everything by themselves. And, like we said before, just plug it in and, well, they'll solve my problem. I don't even really need to define the problem. They'll just do it. And, we know that it doesn't work that way. So if you just go to YouTube and look for some videos where actually 3-year-olds can really confuse systems like Alexa with the simplest questions, we actually realize these systems are not as intelligent as they actually sometimes seem to be. So you need to run it through, tech side, data science side, and business, and really come up with, a very specific scenario. And I have an example that I brought for you in the next slide. So, you really need to think about it. What are we trying to do? And actually even run it down to some, almost KPIs. Like, really think about what's the goal, which should not be just replacing people and save money. There's a lot more, KPIs and value that you can bring out of it. So really, just think it through and do it in a long-term scenario. Because we also know that AI systems these days, one of the main limitations is that they don't generalize so well. So they can't really switch, context or goals. So even, the Google's AlphaGo machine, I mean, it's not going to be able to switch on your light at home. It's also probably not going to be able to play a game of chess because it doesn't know how. It wasn't taught. So if you train a machine and build an algorithm that does one thing, it knows how to do exactly that one thing. And if your company's KPIs and the values and everything changes too rapidly, you're going to have a very hard time retraining sort of the machine. So really think about what you want to do and whether it's sustainable in the long term. So I promised you an example, so just really quick. At ProSiebenSat.1, we're currently working on automizing parts of our youth protection process. So that means that we're building an application which uses video, audio and video analysis, and it's actually supposed to find scenes and content that include like nudity, violence, or hate symbols, or we call it anti-constitutional, so illegal symbols in content. And the scenario, what we want from the machine is it's just supposed to scan a whole lot of content and then point out those possibly critical scenes and give those then to the expert. So very important here, the scenario is not that the machine does everything, we get rid of the experts, and the world is a better place. That's not what it's supposed to do. It's just supposed to solve that bottleneck point that we had, because right now the experts actually, they need to scan so much content and it takes so much time. And instead of that, the machine now scans the content and can only point out those specific critical areas where then the expert knowledge is needed. But what then happens with it, so whether we need to actually cut it out or whether that means that we cannot show this piece of content on some channel or at some certain point in time, all these expert decisions, they keep staying with the expert. But the benefit of the system is still really valuable and still really measurable because it means a huge reduction in processing time and, it really increases the amount of material that we can actually process. So in the end, that also means that we have a lower risk of sort of flaws because there's there's less material that completely goes unscanned. So the risk is just less that we will just completely miss something. But to actually, find this case like this, we really sat down with the business quite a lot and, talked about it and really went through it. What actually can, AI do these days and what would be a possible scenario until we got to this actually very concrete benefit. Last but not least, let me say a few things, about the methodology. So we spoke about, now you know what you want to do, why you want to do it, and now the question is, how do you do it? And again, we are in a hype area. So, there's a lot of discussions about AI and what is really AI, what is real AI, what is just machine learning, or how do you distinguish it? My opinion, at least when it comes to business applications, who cares? Don't worry about it. Like, just because there's a hype doesn't mean that deep learning now is the best method for everything. And again, you data scientists out there, that's, your task because you know these methods. So, you have to sit down with the business and find the adequate mathematical method for this problem. Could be deep learning, but it could also, be a complex rule-based, decisioning algorithm or whatever. So really sit down and think about what the best method is and don't just focus on what the hype methods are at the moment. The second point is something that is actually, everybody knows this. So everybody knows AI algorithms are fed by data. So of course you need data. If you don't have enough data, it doesn't make sense, right? But it's actually not that easy to check whether you have enough data. So what we did a lot at ProSiebenSat.1 was we had a lot of sort of small POCs, to see whether something would actually work. So we pulled some data from somewhere, built a small system on it, and then found out, yoo-hoo, okay, cool, this works. But then when we were about to put it into production, we actually realized that to have such a system in production also data-wise is a complete different story. Because it's one thing if you have a small piece of data that you pulled for that purpose, and it's a complete different thing if you have a system that runs like every day, that gets a lot of data, very different patterns, big variety, data becomes more complex, there's new cases. But the machine still needs to be able, the application, to make good decisions, and the algorithm still needs to work. And that's very difficult to just test on some sort of, small data sample in the beginning. So this is actually taps into one of the general points that I like to make. You really need to think about, how do I integrate my system into the IT landscape? Because what you want to create is a system that can, more or less autonomously actually keep pulling data, keep adapting, keep learning, and then, making decisions or give some sort of valuable output, but also do that on its own and autonomously and feed that into some sort of a system. Because only that way the system, acts more or less on its own. If you create a system that needs too much manual care, like what we found with these small POCs, you can't put them into production because we realized, okay, now we need a lot of people that label new data all the time for the algorithm to learn. We need some people that, do sort of retraining or update the algorithm. That takes a lot of manual care. At some points, we sometimes even needed people to pull data manually out of some legacy system because the technology couldn't speak with each other. And if you design a system like that, without thinking about it, just needs so much manual care, of course, it doesn't make anybody happy. Because then the business people will just tell you, well, really now? You promised us that, we would get rid of all these boring tasks. So yeah, no, we did, but we kind of got new boring tasks. That's not really the point of everything.